Guys, stay with me, and I've got 8 creative ways to get your home sold.
You better get fired up.
What's going on? Happy Monday, guys. Hope you had a phenomenal weekend. I had a phenomenal weekend. Nice and hot out there, man. Been getting a lot of pool time in. Hopefully you guys are too. It is Florida summer, man. It's upon us. So the heat is out there. We're seeing a lot of people obviously interested in pools right now. It's been a hot market as well, which is great for sellers, right? They want to see buyers out there. We're still seeing them. In fact, I've been watching sales for the last year every single Monday, and every single Monday since, the amount of sales has been increasing, which is great, right? I want to say sales, when I looked this morning, was up 39%. The amount of sales over the last 45 days is up 39% since the first of the year. So great things. Today, we're going to talk about getting your home sold in creative ways that a lot of realtors don't talk about, a lot of sellers don't think about, or they haven't been exposed to these things. And they've all got their, times and best scenarios where you would use them, right? So I'll get into these different things. So the first one is pretty simple. It's offering to pay closing costs. Right now, a lot of people have the credit score and they might have the income to be able to get a loan for your property, but they just don't feel comfortable with the cash out of pocket. And for whatever reason, our society is really good at bringing in the income, but they're really bad about keeping it in their accounts. So when it comes to closing costs, a lot of people have a tough time showing out that cash. How do you solve that problem? As a seller, you can offer to cover some or all of those closing costs, right? We see this a lot with builders. They'll offer to cover $5,000, $10,000 worth of closing costs, which significantly reduces the amount of cash that has to come to the table. And I have seen people say, I really like Builder A, but Builder B offers to pay my closing costs. Let's go with Builder B. People will make that decision based off of that. So closing costs is phenomenal. When would I do it? I would do it in a market where it is a neutral or a buyer's market. In a seller's market, you do not need to do that. Also, the lower the price point you are, the more it's typically needed. People on a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 home typically, not always, don't need as much cash help. Whereas people that are in the $300,000 to $400,000 range typically do need the cash help, right? So it depends on the price point as well. So that's number one. Number two, credits for repairs or updates that are needed, right? So if you've got older flooring, or maybe you've got nasty carpet, or maybe your countertops are, laminate countertops or Corian countertops, or maybe they're just beat up, right? Maybe your cabinets are starting to peel at the edges. They're 25 years old, different things like that. You can look at the problems you're probably going to have. And if you've got a good realtor, they're going to know what the concerns likely are going to be. And they'll tell you, hey, this is going to be a problem. And flooring is probably the most typical one. And it's going to cost roughly $10,000 to get the flooring done. We can either redo it or we can offer a credit. If you redo it, that's going to be the best, right? Because either way, you're showing out the money. If you can show them what it looks like, people are more apt to buy than if they have to think about it and they got to put in the time, the effort, the risk. I got to call this person. Is it truly going to be 10 grand? They don't want to deal with it, right? So if you can get it done, get it done. But if you can't get it done because some people just don't have the cash on hand until they close and get that equity, then you can offer the credit, right? Very helpful. Number three, rate buy downs. So you can do this two different ways. And really the second way can be, redone a million different ways. You can either do a full buy down for the life of the loan. So for example, if you come in and the lender's saying, hey, it's going to be 7.5%, you can talk to a lender as a listing agent, as a seller, before you put the home on the market. And you can say, hey, how much would it cost to get them from 7.5 to 6.5, or from 7.5 to 7, or whatever it is? Oh, it would cost X amount of dollars. Now you can advertise in your listing. If buyer chooses to use ABC lender, seller will pay for a 0.5% rate buy down or a 1% rate buy down for the life of the loan, right? And now you can advertise how much that's going to save that buyer. It's massive. If you look at the difference between a payment on a 7.5 versus a 6.5, and you multiply that over 30 years, you're going to see that it's tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? It's a lot of money. So that's a big impact there. That's a little bit more expensive. A cheaper way to do it is what's called a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down. A lot of different ways you can do this, but we'll explain the 3-2-1 buy down, right? So instead of paying for a rate drop for the life of the loan, you're going to pay for a 3% drop the first year, a 2% drop the second year, a 1% drop the third year, and then year 4, they're back to making the full payment that they would otherwise be making. So let's go back to that 7.5%. You're going to do a 3-2-1. So year 1, you're going to calculate, and the lender will help you with this math, what the payment would be on 3% less. So 7.5 minus 3 is 4.5. What would that payment be if the rate was 4.5 instead of 7.5? Great. That's what the buyer's going to pay. That difference that is truly owed to the lender is going to be put in an escrow account, and that amount's going to go to the lender as part of the payment, right? So the buyer will be making a portion of the payment, and you, the seller, will be making the other portion out of an escrow account. It'll come out at closing in full from you, but it'll sit in an escrow account and go to that lender over time. Now, in year 2, instead of a 3% drop, it's a 2% drop. So instead of the payment being based off 4.5, it's based off 5.5 in this example. So now the amount that you're paying in as a seller is lower. And then the third year, it's a 1% drop. So instead of 7.5, you're at 6.5. And then on the fourth year, you're back to making your full payment of 7.5. So from the lender's point of view, they're getting all their money, right? It's a 7.5%. It is what it is. Give me all my money, right? That's what the lender's saying. But as a buyer, you're feeling a much lower payment, and it tiers you into that full payment over 4 years, right? For a seller, all that money is going to be calculated, and it's going to come out at closing and put in an escrow account. Typically, that's going to be cheaper than a rate buy down for the life of a loan, although you can crunch the numbers, right? For me, a rate buy down over the life of a loan is way better than a 3-2-1 or a 2-1 buy down. But that 3-2-1 or that 2-1 buy down is a great sales pitch if you're trying to get people in, and rates are the issues, right? So there's another thing to think of. Number 4, offering a warranty. When would I offer a warranty? So what warranties typically are going to run you, I'll say $700 to $1,000. Can you find them cheaper? Yeah. Can you find them more expensive? Yeah. What is a warranty typically going to do? You're going to have a home inspection, and that warranty is going to cover you for X period of time. Usually it's a year, and it's going to cover basically anything that is not necessarily the fault. I don't want to say fault. It wasn't purposely done by the new buyer, and sometimes it doesn't cover some aesthetics, right? But where I see it come into play a lot is appliances, washers, dryers, fridges, dishwashers is a big one. If you've got a good roof, according to the inspection, and then you have a roof leak, it'll cover that. It'll cover a lot of pool issues. It covers plumbing, electrical, AC, water heater. It covers a lot of stuff. And you can get that for usually $700 to $1,000, and you'll have a deductible. So the one that I consistently use is based on square footage and what kind of coverage you're looking for. But again, they're usually between $700 and $1,000. And you can either pay a little bit more, and it's a $75 deductible per occurrence, or you pay a little bit less, and it's $99 per deductible or per occurrence, right? So now when you have an issue, you're showing out $75 to $99. They're taking care of the rest. When would I use that? I'm not going to use that on a $600,000-$700,000 home, because typically speaking, someone buying a $600,000-$700,000 home can afford to fix their AC, their fridge, their dishwasher, whatever it is. So that's not quite as attractive to them as it would be for someone who's in that $300 or $350 price point. For those folks, a lot of these folks are barely squeaking into this house. They don't want to pay $300 to $350, but that home is barely hitting their standards, and that's what they can afford, right? And they're trying to build long-term wealth. I applaud them. Do it, man. I did it too. I lived in a crappy house, 1317 6th Street North, 6th Street South in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Ugliest, smelliest, nastiest house, old carpet. That's where I lived in my early 20s, and I saved up my money until I could get into a better and better and better house, right? So I love seeing that. But for people who are tight on money, they're concerned about appliances breaking down. They're concerned about their AC or water heater breaking down. If your listing offers to cover those issues for up to 12 months, man, does that make them feel good, right? Also, if you use DBJ inspections, and I think there's a couple other inspecting companies that do this, you can get a pre-listing inspection done. And then with that pre-listing inspection, you can get an 18-month warranty for the price of a 12-month. and you can offer that to that buyer. It covers you, the seller, until closing, and the time's not ticking. And then once the closing date hits, that clock starts ticking for 18 months and they get that. That is huge, right? So again, if you're in that $350, maybe even $400,000 price point, that is a great thing to offer. Number 5, offer to let them rent or store their stuff at your home until closing. Now, there's all kinds of issues with this. A lot of realtors and attorneys are going to be like, no, I'm not saying it doesn't come without risk or issues. I'm saying it's a creative way to attract more buyers, right? A lot of buyers will say, hey, I can't close until this date, but I am going to be homeless on this date, right? That could be because they're waiting on a certain amount of money so they can get their paycheck, or they're waiting on, who knows, it could be a million things. If you offer to let them rent during that period of time, especially if your home is vacant, that might be the thing that gets them to say, this is the one, let's go with this one, right? Or they might have a lot of stuff. They don't need to live there, but oh my gosh, where am I going to put all my stuff? Even sometimes a day or two will save them, a week, whatever it is, of allowing them to put their stuff in your garage, right? Or in a shed outside, or whatever it is. That will get the deal done. So if you can offer that, sometimes that's a big deal, and people will move forward on your home versus other homes, right? Number 6, offer to cover moving costs, right? So you can actually look up what moving costs are going to run for somebody, and you can say, okay, moving costs are whatever it is. Say it's $6,500, and you don't know, because they could be coming from California, they could be coming from 2 blocks down. But whatever it is, you can say, okay, I'll cover $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is. And now you can offer, hey, seller will cover moving costs up to $5,000 to be paid at closing. Awesome. That feels great, right? So now I know if I buy this home, I don't have to physically move the stuff myself. I can pay a moving company to do it. Oh my gosh, that solves so many problems. I was so concerned about my back and how hot is it going to be in Florida and taking time off of work. Man, that whole problem's solved. Woo! Let's move forward with this home, right? So again, there's a creative way to do it. Number 7, offer a new roof, and you can offer the choice of color and material. So here's how you do it. There are several roofing companies out there, and there's a lot of different programs, but I'm going to give you one. You can put 20% down right now, and they'll start the permitting process so that they can get it done lickety split once you're ready. And then when you get a buyer under contract, that buyer gets to pick the material and the color that they want. And then you put another 20% down. So you're 40% down, and then they get the roof done, and you pay the other 60% at closing, right? So if you're low on cash as a seller, you can put down 40% only, and 20 of that is put down once you have a buyer, right? So it's at the very end. It's 30, 45, 60 days before you're going to actually have your cash. So it's a much more affordable way to be able to get that roof on, attract buyers because of the roof. And you can say, hey, I got a quote, and the roof is going to be 17 grand. If you want metal and it's 25, you're going to pay the $8,000 difference. I pay the first 17. If it's shingle, I got the whole thing, right? Now they can pick if they want a blue roof, green roof, brown roof, or maybe they want metal and they want hot pink or whatever the heck they want. Now they can get it, right? And you're going to cover all or a portion of that roof, which is awesome. At the same time, making it affordable for you as a seller, right? So that's another great option. In this market, if you've got an 18, 19-year-old roof or older, it is very challenging now to get what you need. What you need is a 5-year roof certification from a roofer, a licensed and insured roofer, saying you've got 5 years left of serviceability on that roof. Well, a lot of roofers are not going to write it. It depends on your roof and everything else, and it depends on, what it's made of, and, is it in the shade or is it in the sun, and is there brush touching it, and a million other things. But if you can't get that roof cert, that pretty much knocks out the majority or all of your funded buyers. So FHA, VA, conventional, gone. All you've got is cash, right? And you might say, well, I like cash. Yeah, cool. Except cash, if they know all you can accept is cash, what do they want to do? They want to negotiate, right? So now you're losing a lot of money, a heck of a lot more than the price of a roof. That's for doggone sure. So you want to be able to get that roof cert. If you can't get that roof cert, this is a great solution to make sure that you've got that new roof on there. If you can afford the roof, get the roof on there. You'll do better every single time. But if you can't afford the roof, there's an affordable way to do it. And number 8, you can offer to pay title, right? So if some people are looking for ways, more affordable ways to attract buyers, title typically costs. So there's on a normal Florida contract, there's box 168 and 172. If you check one, it says seller picks and pays for title. If you check the other one, it says buyer picks and pays for title, right? Meaning whoever pays for it gets to pick who we close title with. So I always tell my clients, if you pick title and there is an issue that title finds out about, guess who they're calling first? The person who's paying for title, right? So if my client's paying for title, I get that phone call with the issue. Now I can call my client, maybe an attorney, maybe, whoever I need to call to get a strategy in place. We've got all our ducks in a row to position ourselves best. And now I call the other side with our strategy, right? The odds that we're going to be successful with that strategy go way up because we paid for title. How much is title? Title is based on your price, but it's typically around $2,400 with all the fees and the policy and everything else. You're paying an extra $2,400 on a $400,000 home. I say 400 because the median price point right now in Port St. Lucie is 420, right? So right around there's $2,400. So if you add 10% in price, go to 440, you're going to be at roughly 10% more on price. So add another $240, you're at 2640, right? Roughly. There is an actual math equation. I'm not going to nerd out with you guys, but just to get you in the right ballpark, that's where you're at, right? So now you're gaining value because if there's an issue, you're going to find out about it first. And you might have had to pay it anyway because they negotiated into the deal. And it's only costing you $2,000-$3,000 on a typical price point here in Port St. Lucie, right? Much less than a lot of these other options are costing you. So there's another thing that you can offer. But number 9 is the most boring, and it's the one sellers hate to hear. It's price. And I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, price is the thing that's going to get it done, right? And there's a reason for it. All these things are fun, and it's ways for sellers to try to get out of having to reduce their price. But unfortunately, a lot of these things are either non-searchable items on Zillow or the MLS or Realtor.com, Truly.com, whatever website you're using. They're not searchable. You have to be on the listing, have looked at, think of the mindset of a buyer, right? The buyer doesn't go and say, okay, there's 1,500 listings in Port St. Lucie. Let me read the verbiage of all 1,500. They don't do that. The first search metric they use is price, right? I'm looking from 400 to 500 grand, whatever it is. If you're not between 4 and 500 grand, you're gone already. It doesn't matter which one of these 8 things you're offering. They don't see it. All right. So having that price point set, if you were at 510 and now you drop to 5, boom, you're in that search. That's why I am not a fan of listing homes at $499.9. I think it's crazy because what if somebody's looking from 5 to 550 or 5 to 6? You just lost that person because you wanted to be at $499.9, right? Think about searchability. A lot of these different things you cannot find in a search. Even some of the ones that are searchable, agents so rarely use them that a lot of agents don't search for them, right? So even if you've got it in there, even if it's searchable, a lot of agents aren't searching for them. Buyers aren't searching for them, nor do they know how to search for them. So it's really a tough thing to get the full value out. Whereas with a price point, it's searchable, right? So even if you've got it in there, again, go back to the psyche of a buyer. A buyer's saying, okay, I want to be between 4 and 500 grand. I want to be in Port St. Lucie. I want a pool and I want at least 3 bedrooms with at least 1,800 square feet. Okay. So now we went from 1,500 listings to 72 listings. Okay. Am I going to read the verbiage of all 72 listings? Nope. Still not going to do it. So you're still not getting me on some of these things, right? Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start to look at the photos. And I'm going to get that list of 72 down to maybe 10 or 15. And now in those 10 or 15, now I'm going to read the verbiage. So unless you make that top 10 or 15, you're not even on the radar, right? So in my opinion, a lot of times, not every time, there are times when I would use some of these. A lot of times you're just throwing money out the window by doing that stuff. It's kind of like a little added bonus. Like I was going to look at your house anyway. I would have put an offer in if I liked it anyway. But now that I'm looking at this, oh, it's a freebie. I'll take it, right? So again, are these things valuable in different scenarios? Absolutely. But you and your realtor should have a real conversation about whether or not there's value in it versus taking that cash that you would otherwise spend on that thing, whatever one of these things I'm talking about, and putting it into a price reduction. Price reductions are searchable. And again, it's the number one searched metric, price, right? So that is the quickest way to get the attention of buyers. Guys, if you've got comments, if you disagree with anything I said, if you've got a ninth way to grab the attention that's not price, certainly put it in the comments. I'd love to see it. But other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Happy Monday.